Checking my phone, I discovered 13 missed calls, all from my mother-in-law, Martha. Not again, I thought. As I pondered this, my phone vibrated once more. I answered, and Martha's voice, filled with anger, came through. "Excuse me, isn't the allowance for this month $3,000 due?" she demanded. "Excuse me," I retorted. "I'll send the allowance once this month's payment is deposited." Martha raged, completely disregarding my circumstances and only expressing her own desires. I had enough of her. Even in this situation, she didn't reflect on her words and actions. I felt I had no choice but to resort to my last option. I pulled myself together and bled out to my phone. "Your son has passed away, so I can no longer send the allowance. My name is Jennifer Smith, 32 years old. I'm a busy working woman at a major financial firm and also a housewife." I continued, "I got married about 2 years ago. I met my beloved husband Mark through our shared hobbies. He was kind to everyone, and I was attracted to his warm smile, quickly developing feelings for him. Apparently, he felt the same way, and after dating for a year, we immediately got engaged. We both believed that we wouldn't meet anyone better than each other. We were living together while dating, and without any major quarrels, we decided to marry. Everything went smoothly for us, but here's where a problem arose. Martha, my mother-in-law. My father-in-law had passed away a few years ago, and since Mark didn't have any siblings, his only family was Martha. The trouble started when I first visited her home to introduce myself before our wedding. "Nice to meet you, Martha," I said, trying to be polite. She clearly showed a displeased expression. "So, you're Mark's fan, huh?" she said. "Yes, my name is Jennifer Miller." "You're a rather plain girl. I wonder what Mark sees in you," she remarked. I couldn't tell if she was joking or seriously meant what she said. Having such words directed at me by the mother of my loved one, I was quite shocked. Seeing my state, Mark frowned at Martha. "Hey, Mom, what's with the sudden harsh words? How can you say such things to the person I chose?" Mark questioned. "No, Mark. I'm just trying to choose a suitable woman for you," she replied. "Choose? I'm the one who chose her. You have no right to meddle. Don't say it in such a cold way. I'm just telling the truth because I care about you. If you were really thinking of me, you'd simply support us. Why can't you understand such a simple thing?" The air turned heavy as an argument unfolded between mother and son right before my eyes. Given that this was my first meeting with Martha, I wasn't in a position to intervene. Although the atmosphere remained awkward, we ultimately managed to express our intent to marry. As we were leaving, Martha called out to Mark, sounding somewhat disgruntled. "Mark, can I have a word? You're going to keep that promise after you get married, right?" "What promise?" Mark inquired. "You know about the allowance or that?" "Yes, I'll be sure to take care of that. Can we not discuss it here, please?" Mark seemed uncomfortable, and the atmosphere between my husband and his mother was tense, thick with discomfort in the car on the way home. I approached Mark to address the lingering concern that had been bothering me. "Hey, Mark, about the conversation you had with your mom as we were leaving," I began. Mark sighed deeply and began to speak slowly. "Yeah, I should have told you about it, Jennifer. I heard something about an allowance after my dad passed away. I've been sending money to my mom every month." "How much?" I asked. $22,000. $2,000? I couldn't help but raise my voice in surprise. Mark continued, "Actually, my mom has a debt. She lost a lot of money at a casino a long time ago. She's still paying it off, and because her health isn't great these days, she spends a lot of time at home. But she still needs money to live on." $2,000? Isn't that a bit too much?" I questioned. "If I try to lower the amount, she keeps calling me over and over, and no matter what, a mother is still a mother. I worry about her living alone." I understood that Mark was devoted to his mother. However, 2 months after our wedding, during my lunch break one day, I received a phone call from Martha. When I answered, she began to speak in a cheerful tone. "Jennifer, long time no see. Can we chat for a bit?" I hesitated before replying, "Yes, what can I do for you?" "You could start sending me money," she said. I was so taken aback that I couldn't find the words to respond. However, Martha seemed excited to continue the conversation. You mentioned before that you're working for a financial company, right? That means you have a good salary, doesn't it? She inquired. Well, not exactly, I replied, avoiding eye contact. Are you lying to avoid giving me money? Martha's tone turned accusatory. That's not what I mean, I explained. But Martha, you're still receiving financial support from Mark, aren't you? In response to my question, Martha defiantly replied, so what? I stated what I felt. Martha, receiving $2,000 in monthly support is a big deal, and yet you're asking for more, really? Martha questioned, if you were to send me an additional $1,000, I could avoid burdening Mark. Confused, I asked, what do you mean by that? Martha elaborated, well, I have Mark as a guarantor for my debts. If I fail to make payments, the debt collectors will go after him. Do you understand? But aren't you using part of Mark's $2,000 to pay back the debt? I inquired. Martha admitted, I'm short. I haven't told Mark, but I have a significant amount of debt. From Martha's tone, it was apparent that this was a fact even her husband was unaware of. Having children in the future would increase our expenses. Additionally, taking over Martha's debt was not an easy task. If Martha's payments fell behind and the debt fell onto Mark, the interest would likely have accumulated significantly by that time. If I refused to send money, it would eventually become a problem for my husband as well. It was better for Martha to pay off her debt now. Thinking along those lines, I reluctantly agreed to Martha's proposal. All right, I'll start sending you money, I conceded. Martha seemed relieved, saying, really good, Jennifer. I knew you would say that. The total, with Mark's contribution, will be $3,000. But this means you can pay off your debt, right? Yes, of course. I should be able to pay it all off in about a year, Martha assured. I pressed, you promise, right? You'll make sure to pay off all your debts. Martha agreed, and I said, I get it. So I'll be expecting it from this month onwards. She ended the call abruptly. Physical exhaustion from work, combined with this emotional burden, only added to my stress. $1,000 a month was going to be rough, but it was also to prevent future problems for us. After all, if Martha couldn't make a living, it would upset Mark as well. That night, I promptly reported the matter to my husband. He listened attentively and said I didn't have to do this, but I had already given my word to Martha, and it was a decision made for our future well-being. Mark expressed his gratitude and understanding, even as he maintained a sorry expression throughout. Time flew by, and 2 years had passed since then. The financial aid we thought would end in a year was still ongoing, and even now, we were transferring $3,000 every month to Martha. What's more, about 2 months ago, Mark fell ill and has been unable to go to work. He's on sick leave, so he's receiving disability benefits, but it's a mere pittance compared to his previous salary. Last month, I managed to transfer $3,000 to Martha from my savings, but it would be very challenging if this situation continues. Unbelievably, Martha has not once come to visit her sick son. We have told her about his hospitalization, but she doesn't show up to see him and only contacts me to ask, "You're still sending the money, right?" I was so angry that I decided to confront Mark about the issue. Mark, don't you think it's wrong that Martha is only concerned about money, even though you're in such a state? We need to think seriously about what to do going forward, I said. Mark agreed, saying, yeah, I've been thinking the same thing. I don't want to put more strain on you, Jennifer. This month, too, she's been bombarding me with calls and messages, asking if we sent the money yet. Are you serious? How can she only think about money when her own son is sick? Mark showed his anger at his mother, his face slightly tense. Then, as if he had an idea, Mark exclaimed, "That's it," and wore a sly grin. What is it, Mark? I asked. Well, this is our last resort. I've come up with something good for my mom, Mark suggested. What Mark proposed was a plan I could never have imagined. Although it could be called inappropriate, it seemed to be the only way to make Martha understand. A few weeks later, Mark was discharged from the hospital. Martha didn't reply to any of our messages, so we didn't tell her about Mark's discharge in the last 2 weeks. Martha's relentless demands for money had reached a point of absurdity. It seemed pointless to continue sending funds to a mother who showed no concern for her son. While Mark and I were enjoying a cup of tea, my phone buzzed with a message. Upon checking, I found 13 missed calls from Martha. As I pondered this, my phone vibrated again, signaling another call from her. "Hello," I answered, turning on the speaker microphone so that Mark could hear. Martha started shouting immediately. "Listen, where's the $33,000 for this month?" "Excuse me, that's right. The money for this month hasn't been transferred yet," I replied. I began to explain Mark's situation, but she interrupted, showing no empathy. "I don't care if he's in the hospital or whatever. It's none of my business. You're working at a good place, right? You must have plenty of savings. Hurry up and transfer it here," Martha shouted angrily. Incredibly, she went on to say something outrageous. "Listen, since you married Mark, if you can't pay, you have to pay me. Understand? If you refuse, I'll make you the guarantor. Got it?" At that moment, something inside me snapped. She was openly displaying her desires without considering our situation at all. I had reached my breaking point. I firmly declare into my smartphone, "Mark has passed away. I can't send you any more money." At these words, Martha blurted out, baffled, "What?" Yes, this was the last resort that my husband suggested, to lie to Martha about Mark's death and observe her reaction. If she showed any sign of sadness, if she reflected on her behavior and apologized, we would continue to support her financially. But if she didn't reflect, if she demanded money, we would cut ties completely. Deep down, I thought that even a money-grubbing woman like Martha would deeply reflect on her actions if she were told that her own son had died. However, the very next moment, Martha burst into loud laughter. "Yay, what's so funny?" I asked. "Well, isn't it obvious? If Mark is dead, that means his inheritance will be distributed to me too. Excuse me, I've been looking into it since I heard that Mark was sick. Listen here, 2/3 of Mark's assets are yours, but 1/3 is mine." I was at a loss for words. I never thought that when she first heard her son was sick, she wouldn't look into treatment, but rather into how the inheritance would be divided. My anger surpassed. I was simply dumbfounded, and my husband appeared to feel the same way. As our eyes met, he slowly nodded, signaling to continue with the plan. I once again addressed Martha in a strong tone. "Martha, did you hear what I said? Mark is dead." "I heard. What about it? Aren't you sad your own son passed away before you?" She callously responded. "You just make sure to send me. I won't let you get away with not doing it," I exclaimed. However, with a click, the phone line was abruptly cut off, and a dial tone echoed. Glancing at my husband, I saw that he was visibly shaking with a face red with anger. "Mark, are you okay?" I asked. My husband looked into my eyes and said, "I'm cutting ties with her. She'll likely come here eventually, demanding my money. Let's wait until then, okay?" "But are you really okay with this? Cutting off ties just like that?" I inquired. "Yeah, I have no regrets." "After that call, she's no mother," my husband replied, his eyes filled with hatred, and I felt the same way. A person who only thinks about money over her own son's life is not family to me. A few days later, as we expected, Martha came to our house. For the time being, I decided to hide my husband in the next room and deal with Martha myself. She approached me with a face like a demon. "Hey, give me Mark's inheritance right now," she demanded again. "With that, anything else to say? He's already dead, isn't he?" "It's pointless to say anything now," I retorted. "Yet you never even visited him. What are you saying? Are you really his mother? You're so annoying. Give me the inheritance right away. I don't mind getting a lawyer," Martha persisted. Speaking more would be a waste of time, I thought. Just as I thought that, my husband emerged from the next room. Seeing him, Martha let out a startled gasp, as if she had seen a ghost. "Mama." Mark said, "YW dead? Long time no, Mom, sorry, but the news about my death was a lie," Mark explained. "A lie? How could you be so disrespectful? Martha responded. I wanted to confirm your true nature, Mom. I was curious about how you'd handle the allowance if your son died. But you turned out to be a gold digger, just as I suspected. I got that perfectly, I added. What? How dare you call your mother a gold digger? Martha protested. Silence. I'm cutting ties with a toxic parent like you, Mark shouted. Martha's mouth was agape at my husband's angry shouts. She could not come to terms with the fact that her own son was severing ties with her. What? What does this mean, Mark? She stammered. It means exactly what I said. I can't consider someone like you as my mother. No way. What about the allowance? Martha asked, panicked. Do you really think I would? You're on your own with the debts. We're moving, Mark said firmly. Wait, please. If you do that, what about my living expenses? Martha tearfully pleaded, reaching out to my husband. He forcefully shook off her hand, looked at her coldly, and said, I don't care about your living expenses. You have been living off us without even a single apology. I really understand your despicable nature now. Don't you dare show up in front of us again. No, wait, Mark. Martha called out as my husband grabbed her arm and dragged her to the front door. He threw her shoes and bag outside and chased Martha out of the house. She made a fuss outside for a while but disappeared after a bit, perhaps unable to withstand the eyes of the neighbors. She tried contacting us multiple times, but we ignored all of her attempts. We set Martha's number to be automatically rejected, and we finished moving. Regarding the matter of co-signing for the debts, it became invalid since Martha had made Mark the co-signer without his consent, and therefore he was not responsible. Without the allowance from us, Martha seems to be leading a miserable life. It's only natural, as she had been using the allowance for her gambling habits instead of paying off her debts. She still has a mountain of debts and is chased by debt collectors every day. She can't gamble anymore and seems to be working from dawn to dusk. For the foreseeable future, it's unlikely that she will be able to pay off her debts completely. She will have to keep working until she is unable to move. This is entirely her own doing. As for us, we are spending fulfilling days in our new home. My husband's condition has stabilized, and he has returned to work. After some time, there's a new life growing in my belly. We're going to have an additional member in our family next year. From now on, we want to spend happy days as a family of 3.